built by Englishmen, not Americans. There were no Americans. And in the graveyard out behind, there are a number of graves that are Englishmen. They are not Americans, because there was no American. And a lot has happened in this building over the years. You just imagine how much has taken place here. Births, deaths, wars. And there are a number of things that are worth remembering. And one of them, let's start over the late one. One of the stories that's been passed down through the generations. The building next to us was known as Mr. Taz's Tavern. And it was known that the parishioners might go in there and prepare themselves for the cold and any winter germs that might be there. And on one occasion, Pastor Eaton, I believe it was Samuel Eaton, was the last one to walk through the vestibule. And as he did, he was noticed to stagger a bit. Deacon Andrew Dunning, the box pew over there, jumped up and transfixed him with a stare and held him till he was wont to sober. And I believe at that point in time he came down, went up into the pulpit and preached hellfire and brimstone for 3 hours. That must have been quite a sermon. And that's the only time it happened. Realize that if it's 10 degrees outside, it's 12 degrees in here. There is no stove in here. You have foot warmers, little metal boxes that you put coals in. And the reason for box pews, or one of the reasons, is a family would buy it, and that was their pew. But also in the wintertime, you would huddle together. You'd have a little foot warmer, which you could go and refill, but you huddle up with your family, get a couple of blankets over you, and stay here in the freezing cold for 3-4 hours. And sometimes there was an afternoon service. And that went for another 3 or 4 hours. So a lot of people would bring their lunch and sit out in the cemetery or in here and have lunch and then have a sermon. And this is Pastor Eaton's hat and wig. I believe that's Samuel. And he was the second minister here. And I believe he read the declaration. And I can't say for certain, but he might well have worn that hat and wig reading the declaration. After that is read, what about the congregation or audience? What went on? You know, were there cheering, clapping, or quiet, or no one knows? Here, there were a number of patriots. Nehemiah Curtis was the head of the Harpsel militia before and during the Revolution. And the gunpowder and shell was stored in the attic of the meeting house. And we've got a gun keg that's got a little bit of powder in it. Most of the gunpowder kegs have a name and who inspected it and the date. Well, the one with powder in it just has some brass tacks driven in the patent. I know what it means. And I've had people from major museums here, you know, I can figure that out. Well, there must be records. Well, the gunpowder mill in Westbrook blew up 6 times, so what are the records for that? But what I wonder, there's 6 gunpowder kegs, and we've got some on display, and there's still some up in the attic. And there's some shot on the floor up in the attic. And whether that's War of 1812, the Revolution, I don't know, and I don't know of any way of knowing. But 40 years ago, I was telling a woman about that gunpowder keg. It was up in the attic. She says, David, you go get that gunpowder keg and get it the hell out of the building. Before you blow the goddamn building. And I said, well, I think it's been there 200 years. I think we're fairly safe. And the gunpowder, saltpeter's all leached out of it, so it's basically charcoal. And I took a piece of it, threw it in fire, it would burn, like a charcoal briquette, but there's no explosive power to it. But what I wonder is, why would you leave any gunpowder? Militia was dissolved in 1823. And why would you leave any gunpowder? 1823, gunpowder is a valuable commodity. So why would you leave any gunpowder? And my theory, which may be exactly right or exactly wrong, is this gunpowder from the Revolution? Because that's a reason to leave it. And if it is gunpowder from the Revolution, how much of that exists anyway? And it can be carbon dated, and we can know exactly then. But I can just see me going to town meeting and asking the town for $5,000 to analyze some gunpowder. I don't think it'd go very far. This place was built by Englishmen, as I said. And King George claimed all pine trees bigger than 27 inches for the Royal Navy. So it's illegal to have a board bigger than 27 inches. So this bench in here is where the deacons sit. Well, that's the church elders. The board underneath them is 29 3/4. We are all good Englishmen. So, among the sermons read here, there's one 3 months before Lexington Conference. And the sermon starts out by referring to King George as a tyrant. And it goes downhill real quick after that. And the sermon ends by saying, it is now time for a whole nation to arise. And now, let's have a reading of the Declaration for the first time.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and to assume among the powers of the earth that separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect for the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. In rather short breath, Mr. Vada, would you proceed?
Strong words. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and now is the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain George III is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operations till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only.
He's outrageous.
He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions for new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial, for punishment for any murders which they should have committed to the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for opposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English law in the neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our legislations and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous age and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation.
We want our freedom!
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands.
Shame.
He has excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury.
Boom!
A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attention of our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity and have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and contiguity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Thank you all for coming. This has been a really fun thing to do.
Thank you.